Welcome to Welcome to AwareWolf for you. My name is Jacqui Mancuso, and today we are joined by Tayler Milkovich. I found this girl on TikTok. She is another spiritual life coach, and she has a lot of positive messages. So I reached out to her to see if she would want to be on the podcast today to talk about why she woke up and why she has her messages. So here we are. Hi, Tayler. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Jacqui. I'm doing really, really good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
So I guess we can dive into this whole thing at the beginning. So the
Yeah.
reason why I called you on the podcast or invited you on the podcast is because I love your messaging of mindset. I can tell just through your work that you totally know that we create our own realities. It has
Mhm.
to do with the words that you put into your own head. And you've come from a pretty intense background with using your mindset to shift your life. So can you just tell us who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll dive right in and start. Um, I guess my awakening to say I'm going to start from like the beginning because I had an awakening before my main awakening, and that was in college. So that was sometime around I'd say 2014, 2015. So I'm from Michigan, and if you know anything about Michigan and colleges, we have these Big Ten schools, and a lot of them are like party schools and all of that stuff. And so I stayed home after I graduated high school, and I just went to local colleges here. But I had a lot of friends that went away, so I had a bunch of friends over at MSU, Michigan State. I had one good friend at U of M, University of Michigan, and I had another good friend over at Central. So I was up at one of these colleges every single weekend, damn near, and it was fun. But about 2 years into that, I remember feeling just like this really intense feeling of just misalignment and disconnect. And it was really, really strange to feel, especially at that time, because I'd never felt something so intense. And on pen and paper, to anybody else, it looked like, everything was good. I looked like I was a confident person, having fun, doing well in school, had a decent job. But inside, something was just brewing within me, and couldn't really figure out why. And I remember I had planned to go up to Michigan State, and I was driving somewhere with my mom, and I was in the passenger seat. And I actually low key kind of had like a little panic attack. Like I started crying and whatnot. And she's like, what's up? And I'm like, I don't want to go this weekend. And my mom's just sitting here all confused. And she's like, well, don't go. Like, like, why are you freaking out about it? And I'm like, because I don't know why I don't want to go. Like these are my best friends and like we have so much fun. And I'm just like, something within me was just like pulling me away from that. And so that was a time in my life where I really kind of was like, just there's something more out there for me. There's something bigger I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not supposed to be wasting my energy on drinking a bunch of alcohol and having surface level conversation and meeting surface level people and all this stuff. And so that was the start of it. However, between the years of 2014 to like 2019, because then I kind of isolated myself. And I feel like anybody, and you maybe, Jacqui, can relate to this, but when you start going through that awakening, that's like a trend. You kind of start to like pull back from society and people. And it's almost like a spiritual ego comes in. Like you feel like you're so misunderstood and like nobody knows who you are. And there's
Yeah.
nobody out there that's going to relate. And so I'm just not going to talk to anybody. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how what I did. But during that time, I feel like, you know, it's all growth, right? In hindsight. But I feel like I almost went too far back and recluded myself a little bit too much because I had this mindset between then and like 2019 that was just super negative, super, super negative. I mean, my energy felt very dense to me. And same thing from an outsider's POV. On pen and paper, it looked like everything was good. I had my life together. Again, had a decent job. I was getting into a leadership role. I was in management, made decent money. Had a close knit group of friends. A few, and it seemed fine. But inside, it was constant. This inner critic in my head was just fucking constant. Like, I mean, to the point where like I would be invited places to parties or whatnot, and this voice in my head would be like, they don't actually want you there. Like literally don't. They don't want you there. Don't go. And then I wouldn't go. And I would sit at home and then I'd be like, man, I feel so lonely and I feel so this and I feel so that. And oh well, I'm just nothing, nobody wants to hang out with me. I'm not enough. And it would just constantly go. To the point where I woke up every single day with an anxious stomach. I mean, I just that like butterfly feeling that's like not in the good way, was in my stomach every single morning when I woke up. I was hooked on my past. I was living in the past. Like I present moment didn't know her. I did not know her at all. From like past relationships that didn't work out, past friendships that didn't work out. I had some I, the relationship with my dad wasn't that good for a little bit, and so I would replay all this stuff in my head, and just in short, very negative. So in 2019, I'm in the middle of like purchasing a home. Like again, things are going good, but I started to feel like just something wasn't right within my body. And again, I'm very in tune with my body. If something doesn't feel right, I'm like trying to figure out what it is and how can I fix it, right? And so I was having some like digestional issues. I was bloated a lot of the time. Um, and I was vegan already at the time too. And just to back up a little bit, I won't go too far into it, but when I did go vegan, my body structure changed quite dramatically. I feel like it went to the size and shape that it is meant to be, and it kind of just stuck there. It was easier to hit my fitness goals in that way. And so I'm a couple years into that, and I'm going, man, like this isn't right. So long story short, with some other things that were going on, I'm like, I should probably go get this checked out. I went to the doctor, and I was 26 at the time, and she's reviewing my history, and she's like, I'm telling her what's going on. And she's like, you're young, you're in great health, you eat well, like you're physically active. There's probably not anything serious going on. So she's like, just monitor it, and if it continues, just come back and we'll kind of go from there. And so still didn't sit right with me because I think my intuition was just like, nah, like there's something else. And so I have one foot out the door, like after checking out with reception, and my doctor's like literally side eyeing me, like just looking at me. And so I turned to her and I'm like, all right, we'll see you later, Dr. Vogel. And she's like, you know what? She's like, let's just schedule a colonoscopy. She's like, I just feel like we'd rather be safe than sorry. And I'm like, okay. Actually, in that moment, I feel like I also I went into a bit of a panic. And I think it's because, I don't think, I know it's because my intuition, my higher self, whatever you want to call it, kind of already knew like what was to come. And so it was the human in me kind of trying to like digest that a little bit. And to the point where like I almost felt like I was going to pass out. And so I had to sit down, and they're like giving me, apple juice and all that stuff. And so long story short, 2 weeks later, I go in for this procedure, and lo and behold, they found something. And I remember waking up from the anesthesia, and I was all loopy and out of it. And they told me like 3 times, like, hey, you got to have surgery. Like, we found something. And then finally, I was like, can you show it to me? And they take the pictures and all that stuff. So she had it on the paper printed out, and I saw it, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, that's not good, man. Like, oh my God, the thing was so ugly. I was like, that's not good. And so whatever, I go home that day, and next day I go in for the pathology report. And I got a shout out. I mean, she actually has since passed, so God bless her. But Dr. Vogel was amazing. She was so freaking cool and just so positive. And my gratitude to her for that, because I think that makes a huge difference for sure. If your doctor's giving you this kind of information, if they can, the more positive they can be about it, I mean, that's like kind of the kickstart to your journey here. So I'm just so grateful, and I wanted to mention that. But she comes in, and again, very up and positive, everything. She sits down next to me, and oh my God, dude, I'll never forget. I'm sitting on this table. My mom's sitting across. She went to the appointment with me, and Dr. Vogel's sitting over here, and she puts her hand on my right knee, and she's like, listen, this is a cancer. Dude, in that moment, I don't know what, I mean, like almost went blank, like out of body for sure. I don't know where I was, but I didn't hear shit she said after that. And I was just like, oh my God. And all of a sudden, I come back to, and my mom is like next to me. She has her arms wrapped around me, and she's not saying anything. She's listening to the doctor and all that. And I'm just fucking staring down at the carpet. I'll never forget, like just coming to consciousness and just seeing this doctor's office carpet. And in this moment, I mean, I'm crying, like I'm just like in shock. But in this moment, I hear this voice in my head. It is not my voice. I don't know who it was. It was like a man's voice. And all it said was, breathe, you're going to be okay. And this sense of calm that came over me in that moment was so intense. And it was so confusing because I'm like, I should be freaking the fuck out right now. Like, I should not be, because we didn't know anything about it. We didn't know what stage it was, if it had metastasized. All we knew was that cancer was there, right? And I'm like, I'm 26 years old. Like, I'm too damn young for this, you know? And yeah, but this sense of calm just flew over me. And I feel like I downloaded so much information in that moment, and I couldn't tell you what it was, but it was just like this, and it was all good stuff. And so it was very, very confusing to me in that moment. And so, anyways, doctor finishes up, we get everything scheduled. She gives my mom and I some time in the room, and I'm still just kind of like sitting there, getting my shit together, ready to go out. And when we left, I turned to my mom and I just said, number one, I'm gonna fucking kick its ass. I'm gonna tell you that much, so don't worry. And I said, and number two, I just this is meant like this is going to be a part of my story moving forward. Like it just is. And I just instantly shifted my mindset because I it was almost like something I downloaded in that moment was that this was either written in my stars or I created it. And I knew that this was like my experience that I had to go through to understand how we manipulate energy to create our reality. It just clicked very, very quick. Like when I thought about all the negativity that I had been holding inside of me for so long, it just made sense. And and I know I'm talking a lot, but if I may just share this other story too. Are you familiar with pranic healing?
Like breath work?
Not
Not
necessarily
pranayama.
breath work, but pranic healing is like energy work. It's kind of like Reiki, but I believe the difference is that Reiki uses your own energy and pranic healing uses energy from the outside, if I'm correct.
Sure. Energy
Yeah,
work.
well,
Yeah.
we'll see. Well, I there was a shop in I forget what it was called, but it was a crystal store, and I had been in there a few times prior, and they had talked about their chronic healing sessions, and it's just always that kind of stuff is so interesting to me because I know that we all have chakras and whatnot in our energy vortexes and energy fields and all that. And so I went in there after this diagnosis, before I had surgery or anything, and I was like, hey, I want to schedule a pranic healing session. I didn't tell them why I was there, just wanted to do it. And so they take me into this back room and it was really cool. I mean, they have you like lay on this table and they go into like a deep meditation. And then the pranic healer starts doing his thing, and he has a amethyst in his hand or quartz in his hand, and he's going and doing all this stuff. And so anyway, I go through that whole thing. It took about an hour, and at the end of it, he's giving me like the little synopsis analysis of the session, and he's like, starting from head to toe, and he goes, your solar plexus was like overactive, and that's chakra down here. And I was like, oh, interesting. And he was like, yeah. And he was like, I felt that you were holding a lot of anger and resentment there. And he was like describing that these chakras, the energy is supposed to just kind of flow and just be at ease. And he's like, yours was like zoom, zoom, zoom. And I was like, oh shit, like that's crazy. Like that's really insane.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I mean, it made me emotional. And I was like, can I tell you why I'm here? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I just got diagnosed with colon cancer. And this man was just like so nonchalant. He was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like, just like, yeah,
Yeah.
probably. And I was like, well, I'll be damned. And so that to me even just confirmed it more. And I think that me feeling so called to go to this session, I mean, that was also like my higher self, like leading me there. Like, let's put these puzzle pieces together, Tayler. Like, it's going to start to click for you. And then after that, they wanted me to get genetic testing because it doesn't run in my family or anything. And I did that and it came back. I don't have the gene for it. I don't have the gene for any cancers. Thank you, God. But I was talking to the geneticist and I'm like, so what do you think about this? Like, what's your interpretation? And she was like, what most people don't understand is that genetics rarely have much to do with any, cancers or physical ailments that we experience. It's all environment. And she made it a point to say both external and internal. And I was like, okay. So I had like these three things in a row: the cancer itself, this pranic healing session, and then I'm talking to this geneticist that was just confirming things for me, like left and right. And so I had been into spirituality prior to that, but not to the extent that I am now. And I just did everything I could to just get myself right. I knew I had energy that I need to release. I knew that I wasn't allowing certain past experiences to flow through me. I knew that I was holding on to some kind of limiting beliefs. Maybe I didn't know that's what they were called at the time, but I knew that there was something within me that just kept that critic talking, and I was allowing it to. And yeah, that's when I really just kind of cracked down and I got serious about it. And thank God, I was able, it was a stage one. So caught early enough too. So that's also divine timing, because I'm like, my doctor was about to let me walk out of that room that day, and who knows what would have happened.
Right.
And all of a sudden she's just looking at me like, let's do it. So the whole thing is just, it was the most incredible experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And that sounds crazy to probably the average person, but I also feel like unless you experience it or experience it to that extent, I mean, it's probably hard to understand. But I feel it was almost written in the stars for me. Like it was just something that was supposed to happen. And it kind of like rebirthed me into this new version of myself that I mean, I feel completely different just at an energetic level. And I look back at that pre 2019 version of myself, and I'm just like, I can't even relate anymore. Like I can't believe that was me. So that's the story in a nutshell.
That was, yeah, that's crazy. And I love your upbeat personality. I love your take on this, that you're looking at it like, I'm happy that this happened to me. I wouldn't change it for the world. I have the same philosophy, that we go through some nasty shit in life because it's like your training camp. It's meant
Yeah.
to bring you to that next version of yourself, that higher version of yourself.
You can't escape it. You know what I mean? Like you just can't. We live in a polarized, dualistic reality. There's good and bad. There's health and sickness, and there's all kinds of, and it's like, the law of polarity. It's my favorite universal law. I'm like, I feel like if you can understand this law, you got it. Like you got it. I don't know. That's just how I feel. But, whatever you desire, the opposite, the polar opposite of that also has the potential to manifest. And it's all about your mindset.
Hmm.
You're the one that decides which part of the continuum you're going to fall on. And I mean, I used to say shit because I mean, I had my grandma pass away from cancer. My grandpa did. I've known people that have passed from it, and it started to become this popular disease all of a sudden, which I won't even get into that. But, I used to say, like, oh, I'm going to die from cancer one day. And now I look back and I'm like, why in the fuck would I say that shit? I
Yeah.
don't, if it was like a coping mechanism of like, hey, might as well accept, your inevitable fate that's probably going to happen to you. But just little things like that. And so many people joke about stuff like that today, or you hear so many people like the whole, I hear it all the time, oh, I'd kill myself, or blah 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 blah, oh, that makes me want to die. And I'm like, yo, that energy is weak. You cannot be saying that kind of stuff. I mean, you can if you want to, but that's not helping you or benefiting you in any way, shape, or form. Like, but it's become so automatic.
Mhm.
And so that's why I do what I do today, because I just know even just one or two perception shifts can change your life. And if you can have somebody that can be a third party outsider that isn't going to be biased and that can see past your own blinders and help you get to the person you're meant to be, it's transformational. I can't tell you the amount of clients I've talked with that, I let them talk and I'll ask them one simple question and they'll
Yeah.
just, oh shoot, I never thought about it like that.
Mhm.
And you can just see their gears turning, and it changes the trajectory of their life, because now they're just seeing their situation through a completely different lens, and it provides so much clarity and confidence moving forward, and it's a really beautiful thing to see.
I love that. Now, I know that you've done a whole lot of self work, right? To heal yourself of this cancer, to move past your limiting beliefs. And I'm sure in the beginning it was hardcore, like all day, every day, lots of tears, lots of screaming. What
Yeah.
does your shadow work look like nowadays? Do you still dive in? Do you still find things about yourself that you think you could work through?
Oh God, yeah. I think I'll be doing that to the day the good Lord calls me home. I think we all will. That's the whole point of evolving and growing. I think there's always going to be a piece of yourself, a shadow piece of yourself that is going to come to the surface. Yeah, in the beginning, it definitely was more intense. I hired a coach that helped me do shadow work, and that was my first time ever even hearing of shadow work. And it was intense. It really, really was. And it was uncomfortable. You got to be really vulnerable, not only with somebody else, but with yourself. Like, it's not fun to come face to face with that, or even to admit to yourself that you're having those thoughts or those feelings about yourself. It's just not. And I think that's one of the things that holds a lot of people back is just the fear of coming face to face with the fear, you know. But anymore, yeah, I mean, I have days where I dive deep into it. You know, I think we all have days where our energy just feels out of whack and we're like, all right, what the hell's going on? But I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is that I think even in spirituality, sometimes we think that we need to be perfect. I think perfectionism can bleed into spirituality. And we think that if we have this trigger, we got to work through all of it right now. And it becomes exhausting because it's like, damn, I just did this last week and now I feel it again. And now I got to go through. And so, anymore, what I do and what I encourage everybody to do is just really be present and really allow every experience to move through you. And that is including the ones that you're in right now in the here and now, and the ones that are coming up from the past. Because, I mean, it's no joke. The energy that's stored within your body is no joke. And if it needs to be released, you got to release it. But you don't have to release it 100%. Like just do what you can in that moment, if that makes sense. Like I still have pieces that come up from my cancer experience, especially in August, when August comes around, because that was the month that all that stuff went down, you know, and the memories come up, and I still feel the feeling of fear every once in a while, and I'll get worried about my health again, and I'll go, oh shoot, is everything okay, you know, blah blah blah. And it's just allowing it to come up and just moving through it in that moment, and just knowing that it's only a moment of experience. That's all it is. It's not real, it's not happening. You're just having a memory come up, you know. And that has helped me a lot. So anymore, it's definitely just whatever I'm feeling or whatever comes up, just being bold enough to just let it come up. Stop what you're doing, sit in silence for a couple minutes and let it come up. If you got to cry, you got to laugh, you got to scream, you got to go for a run after, like, I don't, whatever you have to do to release it, just do it.
I really appreciate that you brought that up because recently, like last week, I dove into a big shadow, daddy issues,
Yeah,
a
I
lot
know
of
about
stuff.
that.
Opened up a can of worms. And actually, last night, my husband and I were having some type of interaction, and I'm like, "This is dad." I'm looking at dad, and then I had that like, "Oh fuck, I don't want to go back in. Like, I'm not ready to dive into that right now." And thank you for that affirmation that you don't need to go balls to the wall every single time something comes up.
You don't, you really don't. And I think that, you know, because I did for a while, and it was exhausting. And it was almost like I felt as if I was failing in my spirituality if I wasn't, you know, being perfect and releasing this energy and being perfect in my energy. You know, you got to understand and just under I think we all understand, obviously, but really consciously remember that you are a human. You know, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. You're supposed to go through this. You're supposed to feel these things. It's not something that you came here to dodge or say, oh, I'm never going to feel sadness, or I'm never going to feel the fear that I felt from 4 years ago when I got told I had cancer. Like, I'm sure even 10 years from now, I'll probably feel it at some point. But it gets easier. You know, it doesn't consume you as much. It's not, even reading old journals, sometimes I'll pull them out and I'll just flip to a random page and I'll just be, oh, yeah, that's cool. But I have old journals from like 2 years ago where I was just journaling about fearing a recurrence of cancer. It came up. And now it's easier to really bring myself back to center, bring myself back to the present moment, and just ask yourself, you know, like, what evidence do I have to prove this? And what evidence do I have to disprove this? Those two questions right there, that helps you move through it like, I mean, freaking butter, you know?
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
So you did say that you hired a coach for some time to help you with that shadow work, which even that blows my mind. I do that with people. Like I'm a coach. I help people work through their shit. I'm super private though. I don't think I've ever done shadow work in person with another, like watching me and helping me go through it. So that has to take a lot of vulnerability.
Yeah, it's it does. It really
I,
does.
I mean, I'm on the other side. Like I help people through their shit, but it's usually a lot of homework. Like, okay, and then go cry on your own, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Yeah, no, I feel that too. It is. It's a vulnerable thing. And like I said, at that point in my life, I didn't really even know what I was in for, to
Hmm.
be honest. He called himself a spiritual business coach. And at that point too, I had been feeling called, I've always been feeling called to be a coach of some sort. I've always had this natural knack for just holding space for people. I love to see the potential in other people and kind of help them pull that out of themselves and see it in themselves. That's one of the most rewarding, fulfilling, even like even when I was in my management job, I promoted a lot of people. And that was just my favorite thing, was just to see somebody start off and just have, such insecurity and fear around their position, and just to see them blossom into somebody that's just like kicking ass and taking names in a leadership role now. I mean, it's so freaking cool. And so I don't even know where I was going with that, but with the shadow work, it did take a lot of vulnerability. And because at that point I wanted to be a life coach, so I was like, okay, he can help me build my business, and then also get my mindset right. And the first half of it with him was all mindset, and it was all shadow work, and it was crazy. I mean, he took me through some really deep meditations, and I couldn't recite them. I should go back and figure out what they are. I'm sure I could even use them today with my clients, because they were really transformational. But really just letting the subconscious mind talk is what it was all about. And a lot of the times, even the meditations that we did, I mean, they didn't really make much sense. Like he would kind of like build a storyline, and he'd be like, just whatever first comes to mind, I want you to just say it out loud, and I'd be sitting there with my eyes closed and everything, and I'd be saying the stuff out loud. And at the end of it, I mean, he was always taking notes, and he would like recite some stuff back to me, and we would see like which shadows were coming up, and what limiting beliefs might have been connected to them. And I also think, awareness is 90% of the transformation. So for me, the first time a limiting belief was like unlocked, and it was just it was a basic one. I think most people have, is just, I am not enough, or I am unlovable. And a lot of that stuff, like I said, connected to my own issues with my dad too. um, the awareness was just so refreshing, and that kind of starts to click too, as it's like, oh, no wonder I've been showing up in this way, no wonder I've been afraid to do this, oh, no wonder I talk this way to myself, in this self-sabotaging, impossible please way.
Mhm.
So yeah, it does take some vulnerability, but I will say, if you find somebody that you do vibe with and connect with and you trust, it's a lot easier, and that's obvious. um but with him, he seemed like he knew what he was doing. He had a good vibe to him, and I was like, man, I just had a scary moment in my life. I don't care what you need me to say to you. Like, I'll tell you everything you want to hear. So let's get this going. Let's get these shadows alchemized into light.
Sure. I love that. How do you work in your coaching? What's your style? How do you help people transform now?
So my style of coaching, I talk to you like I'm talking to you right now. Like, I talk to you like you're one of my best friends. I want to make people feel comfortable. That was something that's always been important to me. Anybody that comes to me, whether you are a family member or a friend or a coworker, whoever, I always want you to feel comfortable in my presence, and I always want you to feel like you can be your most authentic self. And so for my coaching business, it's definitely more geared towards kind of releasing the fear that is within you, because whenever fear is present, there is a limiting belief attached to it. That's one thing I did learn in my own coaching sessions with Dave. Um, that would be the only reason that fear would show up. And so really getting to know that fear, and then just transforming it into confidence, because everything that we feel, all of our emotions, they're just energy. And so energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transformed. And so it's okay if you're feeling this dense energy that's making you feel stuck. We're just going to transform it. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to get into your mindset and figure out what beliefs you do hold, what stories you're telling yourself, what thoughts you're having on the daily, and even looking at your cognitive distortions, these different thought patterns that you have that are skewing the way that you perceive your reality, and just kind of dismantling and rewiring, and becoming more empowered. And again, like I said earlier, it's usually a couple perspective shifts. A lot of my clients, in our first session, it's all about just, what do they want to get out of this realistically in 12 weeks? Where do you want to be? And then the second session, we go into why hasn't that happened yet? And then after that, it's all like mindset for the next probably 6 to 8 sessions. And the last couple sessions, then we're taking some like practical action steps and bridging the gap there. But it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy it. And I think just more people need it. And the younger age you can invest in yourself. This is another thing. Like, I would eventually love to work with kids, because I remember being a kid and everything that I went through and everything I was thinking and feeling. And that led me to this point in time where I was so negative on myself, and allowing my inner critic to take over, and my ego to control my actions. And it's just like, if kids could learn this stuff, I mean, early on, it just would, I believe fully, I mean, the collective would just like skyrocket, the world would literally be a better place and the kids would live a better life, not to say that challenges make for a bad life, but being able to work through the challenges. Like I said, you're never going to avoid them. It's always going to come up. Pain points will always be there. I just made a video about that the other day. It doesn't matter if you go from somebody that doesn't have a lot of money, you got pain points there, and when you become a millionaire, you still got pain points. They just look different. And
Yeah.
so just teaching people how to work through those experiences so that they're not getting stuck within you. You're not latching on to one specific experience that you had this specific attachment to this outcome that you wanted to have and it didn't happen. So now you're a failure and you're no good and people reject you and nobody wants your product and all this stuff.
Yeah.
No, just work through that. It's okay because the next moment's coming and we're going to adjust and move forward. So that's
Yeah.
essentially what I do now. And I love every bit of it.
That's amazing. I know I work off the philosophy of your healing is my healing. And I feel like the more that I help people, the more I help myself and vice versa.
Love
And
it.
I wanted to ask you if you've noticed since you started clearing your limiting beliefs and believing more in yourself and having a more positive mindset, have you noticed your reality shift? Has your whole world gotten brighter because of your mindset?
Yeah, no, honest to God. And that's one thing that I feel like it's hard to describe until you go through it. And, that's why a lot of the times, like when I do have clients that are hesitant on committing or whatnot, I'm like, just trust me, like, because when I prior to 2019, when I think about the way I was seeing the world, like I said, it felt dense, it felt heavy, it almost felt gray, the way I was perceiving it. And now, when I say that I'm the happiest, most abundant version of myself I have ever been, I'm not saying that lightly. Like I am saying that with from my heart and full truth. I truly find the good in every single experience that I go through, every single one. And I find the challenge too. And now it's kind of fun. But I believe that it's fun because I'm more aligned on my path now. It's not so fun to come face to face with challenges when you don't want to do what you're doing in the first place. But when you love what you do, when you're passionate about what you're doing and you're authentic to who you are, it just kind of becomes a fun game where you're just like, oh, shoot, I wonder if this would work. Let me just try it and let's find out. And if it doesn't, all right, cool. Well, not scratch that one off the list and then we'll try again. But yeah, reality has shifted in many different ways. And I think the biggest way that it has shifted as of recently is the connections I've been making with people. I have been building the most meaningful, grounded relationships, just in the platonic sense and even in like a professional sense. And going into 2023, my New Year's resolution was connection. I was like, I just want to connect with as many people as I possibly can. And one fear that I've been had to work through my whole life is the fear of judgment and then the fear of rejection, because those two I think go very much hand in hand with each other. But I was afraid to even just be myself to this extent, talking about all of this spirituality, the universe, mindset, limiting beliefs, all this stuff. I, and I'm sure there was some point in my life where I probably did get like shut down and somebody probably made fun of me or did something. And I was like, zip, not talking about that anymore, like that's no fun. But I feel like now it's so cool because once you step into that authentic identity and you move through the fear, because again, fear is also never just going to cease to exist. Literally, it's something that you're here to experience. But if you can move past it and just kind of take that inspired massive action anyway, the universe repays you in the most abundant ways. And so right now, a big way that I see my reality shifting is the relationships that I'm building. 2 years ago, even I would not be confident enough to even come on here and talk about this stuff, connecting with you, or eat like this hiking trip that I'm going on. I'm going with a friend and then two people I don't know. I wouldn't have done that a couple of years ago. But now it's just like I'm actually excited to do that. And I think that shift in and of itself, it's all about how you feel, because that's life, is thoughts and feelings. And so that in and of itself is such a bright shift to me that it just makes life that much sweeter, that much more enjoyable. I get to experience more opportunities are coming to me because I've opened myself up in this way. So yeah, I mean, doing the work, your reality shifts, and it can shift instantly. Every moment's a new moment. You can shift it right now if you want to. All you got to do is be willing to just do what it takes to shift it.
Really good point. I feel the exact same way too. Just bringing your authenticity to the table, you invite people into your vibration. I remember a handful of years ago, I was seeing a therapist and she was telling me that I'm not being authentic and I couldn't understand what she was saying. It like wasn't computing. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just doing what you're supposed to do to be happy in life. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And I've started noticing too, the more authentic I am, the more I talk about what the fuck I want to talk about, because it's my
Yep.
life and my voice and I get to say it.
Yep.
Um, I've been attracting people that are on my same vibe. And I just saw a video the other day that I want to bring up because it was huge. It rocked my world a little bit. But this guy was talking about authenticity and how authenticity is supposed to be polarizing. People are supposed to love you and people are supposed to hate you for being authentic. Because when
Yep.
you hide behind your mask, you're in the middle and people like you. You can't be loved when you're playing part. You can only be liked. And I thought that that was really cool. Yeah, and I've attracted a whole lot of people just vibrating in my authenticity. So I think that's cool that we're on the same page with that.
Was it Aaron Dowdy? Do you know that came up and said that?
I don't know. It was a random TikTok. It was a guy like speaking at a conference or something, and I didn't catch the name.
Did he have like long hair and a beard?
I think so, yeah. And he was wearing goofy clothes.
I don't know about the goofy clothes, but Aaron Dowdy, if you don't know him, look him up as well. He actually is the first person that I started listening to. He's a YouTuber, but I found him on like Spotify, and I started listening to him, and he was the first one that really taught me a lot about this. And so I would love one day to go to a live event of his as well, and even just tell him that. And I'm sure he hears it all the time, but he talks a lot about that, is that your authenticity is polarizing. And he used to talk about it in the romantic relationship sense, because that's kind of how he got big and got started. That was his niche. But yeah, it really, really is. And I think that, so many of us, and for me at least, it was like I did want to be liked and accepted by everybody because I didn't like and accept myself. And so I was looking for that external validation because I couldn't give it to myself. And so it was like I was trying to fit the mold of what society wanted. And it was like multiple personality, like I was trying to be who I thought my parents wanted me to be. And by the way, I mean, I was raised by my mom. Like I said, I saw my dad, but we didn't have a great relationship for a long time. We do now. So very grateful for that. I love him to death. But growing up with my mom and everything, she lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
Authenticity, wanting to please your parents.
Authenticity, yes. So she always kind of, she never told us how we should be or anything like that. But I always had this like,
It's implied.
I thought, what's
Yeah.
that?
I was going to say it's implied. Like you just want
It's
to please your
implied.
parents. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And it's people pleasing. And I was a big people pleaser for a long, long time. And I can honestly say I am not anymore. And that in and of itself is freeing too. So yeah, even with my parents, it was like I had this idea, even though they weren't saying, Tayler, you have to do this, you have to do that. I had this idea of what they wanted to see. And so I would mold myself to be that person. In my social circle, I would mold myself to be that person. In my professional life, I would mold myself to be that person. And not to say that I wasn't, I think pieces of my authenticity were there, but I wasn't fully who Tayler Milkovich is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you fear judgment in that way, and then the fear of rejection comes in, I mean, it's such an intense feeling that you're gonna like lock it down to avoid having to feel anything that comes with that. And so, yeah, once you step into your authentic frame and you realize that you're unhappy being inauthentic, so you might as well just try to be authentic and see what comes of it. And then all of a sudden, you're like you said, it's polarized, it's magnetized. The people that don't jam with you are gonna go jam with somebody else. And like that's cool, because at the end of the day, why do you want to hold on to that relationship anyway? Why do you want to entertain somebody when inside you're like, this fucking sucks?
Mm-hmm.
Why not just be who you are and let the cool people come to you, the people that you think are cool because they think you're cool. And it's you so many opportunities come out of that too. Not even just the relationships themselves, but just the experiences that you get to go through are absolutely wild. So authenticity all the way. And I get it because I've been there. I'm sure you've been there as well. As like it's hard to allow those pieces of you to shine. One of my favorite questions I also have my clients, when I'll tell them too, you're not being authentic, or I'll suggest maybe that they should think about if they are being authentic. And same kind of similar with you when you said you're going to therapy and she was telling you weren't, and you were like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I am. It's just asking yourself these two questions. Number one, who are you being when no one's watching? And number two, who are you being when other people are around, and why are they different? And when you ask it in that way, and then you go, oh, and why are they different? Oh shit, they are different. Yeah, I don't know. That kind of can help you at least get that awareness that maybe you aren't being truly who you desire to be.
That just hit like 20-year-old Jacqui so hard in the heart because I used to like pride myself on being that chameleon. I can please these people and I can please these people and I could be like this. And it's so like exhausting thinking back on it. It's so exhausting.
It's exhausting and it's unfulfilling. I mean, you go to bed at night, like there's no fulfillment. Like there's no I remember being in college and like when I said like I would go out and be drinking with people and all that. And I had a fun group of friends, but sometimes they were a little cliquey with each other. Like we'd go to a party and they would all just like sit on a couch together and like take pictures. And I'd be like, oh, I could have done that at home. I could have saved money on the Uber. You know what I'm saying? So like I would just always try to connect with people because I was like, well, like I don't know, I don't want to do that. So, and I remember one time there was like a guy I was talking to at a party, and all of a sudden, like we just started this conversation about like the universe and space, and I was like just having such a good time with him. And later on, my friends like were giving me bullshit for it, and they were like, oh, like they were like, oh, Taylor, you were so thirsty, you were trying to get that, and I was like, dude, you guys were sitting on a couch taking selfies. I was literally just having a conversation. But
Yeah.
those were those moments that I held on to where I'm like, oh shit, my friends think I'm fucking weird, or they think that I'm trying, my intentions are this or whatever. And it's like, I didn't want to be judged in that way. And so I would just, dial it back. I'm like, all right, well, I won't talk about this stuff anymore. So yeah, if I can give anybody a piece of advice, man, just whatever you're into, life becomes so much more enjoyable when you can just be who you are. And actually, that leads me. So I want to ask you, because I know you're into astrology and all that, and you're saying that you used to be the chameleon that would try to please people. So, I mean, tell me a little bit about your awakening. Like at one point, were you like, yeah, I'm just going to go all in and I'm going to start a social media and I'm going to start talking about this stuff and I'm just going to see where it goes?
Sure. That's a loaded question. When
Right.
did all this awakening happen for me? This awakening started in maybe like 2012-ish is when that was when my dad first told me, hey, the table vibrates, like everything is energy there. I was raised Catholic, we went to church, and my dad was like, we were just doing that for the morals, like we don't really believe in the book.
I
um,
was raised Catholic too.
and then he started explaining energy and chakras. This was post his heart transplant. So after he got a new heart, he became a spiritual person. So he was like trying to teach me. So that was like the first little bit of it. And then just like casual astrology would come up in the workplace. And I thought it was fun and it helped me understand boys. And then when the world shut down in 2020, that's when I had all of the free time in the world to research and study. And that's my passion. I love digging into things. I love getting to the nitty gritty, figuring out the whys. And at the time, I was a PE teacher, and I was sent home, and I was literally working 1 hour a day. So I had the rest of the day to be like, what is happening? What does all this mean? Like, why are we being shut down right now? Like a spiritual reason, right? There's more to this. It's not just events, like, there's a meaning.
Yep.
And then I started like diving into astrology, and the astrology was speaking so strongly about why we were going through what we were going through. There was a lot of harsh transits in 2020, and it was all about control and regulation and lockdown. And it was just so obvious to me. And
Mm-hmm.
then how did it start? I started just like talking about it, and people were picking up what I was putting down. And then I actually started this whole business based on energy work. I took a Reiki class and it just seemed easy, and I knew it. And I've done all of this in past lives, clearly. And
Right.
it was just so easy to pick up. And then I was thinking that I can help people with this. Like I could just heal the world with all these skills that I have. So I started a business, which I thought was going to be Reiki and essential oils. And now I do coaching and astrology and tarot and oracle and Akashic records, and I'm all over the place. I'm just here to help people find the best version of themselves. But
I love
it's a pretty cool evolution, because I wasn't like, I started this business thinking like, oh, I'm going to help people find the best version of themselves. But the more I work it and the more I just flow with this and take wherever the universe wants to go, I'm realizing that that's exactly what I'm doing. And it's because I've found the best version of myself. So it's pretty fun.
Oh, that got that. I mean, that hit home for sure, and that's something that I've been really dialing in on as well. Is just because when I started coaching, I mean, I always say to people, I'm like, I feel bad for my first few clients because they did not get the best version of me. I mean, but they got the best version of me for that time. But I've evolved so much since then that I'm like, oh, I almost feel like I should go back to him and be like, hey, let me just give you a few weeks for free because I got some more stuff to give you, you know? But yeah, you know, when you find your passion and you find your purpose, I think it does evolve. And but that's the thing is you got to start somewhere. You got to take inspired action and just fucking start. And I don't care if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to work for somebody else, I don't care what you want to do because people are needed in every single field, you know? But you need to find something that you're going to wake up every day and you're going to be excited to do. And even on the days when you don't feel motivated, it's a little bit easier to hold yourself accountable and get motivated because you love what you're doing. And then you just kind of go from there and everything snowballs, you know? And it turns in usually to something like I didn't start as a confidence coach. And I feel like that's really what my focus is because that's what I have found people need the most help with is just being confident enough to be themselves, to speak up in a room full of crowded people, to be visible in a room full of crowded people, to, you know, introduce themselves to new people and build those meaningful relationships, to make that first move in their career or in their health and wellness, you know. And I've just found there's so many people that are so terrified of the unknown and terrified of their own fear and have so many limiting beliefs inside of them that they settle for a life that feels very mediocre and it's unfulfilling. And it gets to a point where, I mean, something's going to happen in my belief. You know, I think if you are not doing what you're called to do, the universe will make sure that you answer the call somehow, some way, you know.
I wanted to ask you about timing and trust also. When you were talking about your awakening, you know, you had your cancer diagnosis. That, in my opinion, was the universe saying, like, it's time, do it now, like, wake up now. And I'm wondering what your opinion is if you would have tried to think about this kind of stuff before you were ready. And how do you trust? How do you know that you're on the right path?
Those are good questions. If I would have tried it before I was ready, that's a good question because it's hard to know
Right.
because I didn't try it until I was ready. Or I at least didn't take it as seriously. I think before my cancer diagnosis, there was always something in me that believed, and my cat just entered the room. So if she starts meowing like she always does,
That's great.
I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm just like, there she goes.
We
But
welcome the
anyways,
animal energy. Oh, that's Darla back there, by the way. She's
I
been
was
hanging
looking.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's Seabell. Animals can chill when people are on calls.
they can.
She's like, not me, not around
It's not
here.
that loud. It's cute in the background.
Yeah, for now. But anyways, um, yeah, if I would have done it beforehand, I think all I can say is I don't think I would be where I am today because I truly believe that I just needed the experience. You're okay that I went through in order to get to where I am. Um, So that was a good question, but I think that's the answer I have is I don't know. I believe in divine timing. My entire life has been divine timing, not even with the cancer, but just with everything, literally with everything. You know, it's fun to look back and go, oh, damn, if that wouldn't have happened, then this wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have met that person or I wouldn't have had that experience. I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So, you know, and then your second question was?
Trust, but I want to say something about the timing thing because I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, why did I ask that question? I know I went through this and I've seen other people go through it in their spiritual awakening. I don't know if you did, but you have this awakening and you're so excited and you're like, everyone should know this. Everyone should have this knowledge and this opportunity. And I feel like it can be a little preachy at first.
Yeah,
So I guess I'm asking the timing if there are people who are looking at people in their lives saying, like, they can use a wake up, they can use this mindset shift, and how to sit with it's okay, they'll get there in their own time. Do you get what I'm asking?
I think so. So you're asking, no, I'm sorry, run it back one more time.
When you're in this excited phase of awakening and you're
Yes,
brand new and you're seeing the world differently,
yes.
it's out of compassion that a lot of us just want to wake up everyone because you deserve this, you know,
Yes.
like, I want you to see it. So, what do you have to say about timing when you see people in your life, in your personal life, friends, family,
Okay.
acquaintances that you're like, they could use an awakening? Like, how
I
do
got
you
you.
have
I
that?
got you.
Yeah.
So timing for them.
I guess I was just talking about timing in general and hoping that it would relate, but sure,
No,
let's
you're
talk
okay.
about
I
that.
think I understand. Um, I think that there was a point in time where actually I have a brother and I love him to death. He's amazing and he's always been my protector and I couldn't be more grateful for him. But there was a time in his life where he was going through, I think, a very stressful situation and it was projecting out towards me. And this was one of those times where I was getting into spirituality. And so we were talking about some kind of topic where it was controversial and we had differing opinions. And I had said to him, you need to raise your vibration. And he just did not enjoy that in that moment. And, it actually turned into a pretty big argument. And it's since obviously healed and whatever. But I think that was a moment where I can relate to what you're saying is like, you do get excited and you understand how real this shit is and you understand how it has changed your life and so you do want everybody to experience that as well and especially somebody that you love and care about and that is so close to you. It's like you want them to have that same amount of clarity and lightness to them that you feel. And I think in that moment I just learned that people really just have to get there when they get there. I think now my approach is a lot more just leading by example. I and it's kind of tough in my business because I try not to be overly salesy because that's not authentic to me. Because I don't want a client that was forced into it because they're not going to have the best experience, and I probably won't either. And B, when you're, which kind of goes with A, when you're called with something, and you feel aligned with it, and you feel like I just got to do this, you're more likely to take it seriously and have a better result. So I think just kind of just being that example and just always staying true to myself and committing to my authenticity and my energy and committing to my daily habits that get my energy right and that get my mindset in an empowering state. And then people see what's going on in my life and then they start reaching out and then they start going, oh, how did you get there and all this stuff, and that kind of sparks it within them. So I do think divine timing, but I think everybody has their own experiences that are going to ultimately lead them to where they need to go. But it's that old saying, like, you can take the horse to the water but you can't make him drink. And I think that's just the same with practicing anything spiritual, or just metaphysical, manifestation mindset. You have to get to a point where it's like you've had enough, if that makes sense.
Oh, sure. So you have to hit your low before you can rise
I
up. I
think
would
so.
agree.
I think so, because I can only speak from my experience and kind of, maybe you don't have to hit your low because I guess I have clients that haven't gone through anything as extreme as what I went through, but just to the point where you're just it's too uncomfortable. Those feelings within you are just, you don't want them anymore. You're tired of feeling insecure, you're tired of feeling doubtful, you're tired of the fear, and you're looking around at other people and you're thinking to yourself, man, if they have it, why can't I? Or I wish I had what they had, or whatever the thought might be. So I think it manifests differently for different people, just depending. And it also depends on how open they are to begin with. If your heart is closed off and your mind is closed off to this stuff, you're likely not going to have any interest in learning about it. But if you kind of open yourself up to like the possibilities of spirituality and energy, and maybe you do have a little more control over your reality than you thought you did. Open yourself up to new perspectives, open yourself up to learning, like have a conversation with somebody every once in a while. So
Sure.
I think you do just have to get to your own point. And I also believe in spirit contracts. Are you a spirit contract?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I believe in that too. And I feel like, that's part of the timing as well. And it all goes together with free will and fate and everything. But I think that we come here, we kind of have a mission. I think we know before we come here what we're meant to do and
Mhm.
what our purpose is. And of course, when we get here, it's a hard school to go through, so we forget about it. And I believe that the more times you've been here, maybe the more in tune you are with your higher self and with your purpose. And I've always felt in tune. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember I would ask my mom questions about the universe, and I'd just be like, "Hey, what was it before it was the universe? You know, like how can something come from nothing? Is nothing still something? At the very least, like you're still thinking of a color in your head or something, so it can't just be nothing. And
Yeah.
how is it just expanding? And how are we floating? And how does gravity?" And my mom would just be like, "Girl, I don't know." Like she would almost get frustrated sometimes. And today when we reminisce about it, she's like, I didn't want to think that deep back then. So she's like, you were kind of freaking me out asking all those questions because I wasn't trying to think that we were on a rock floating in space and it's just, expanding at these rapid rates. So that answers the first question, I think. And then
Hilarious.
trust. Um, I think that's just building a good relationship with your higher self. And higher self, I think that can be interchanged with a bunch of different words: God, the universe, energy.
Yeah.
I fully am a believer that we have multiple realities that are all taking place at once. There's different versions of ourselves based on different vibrations. You align your vibration to match the reality you want to be in. You will be in that reality. It literally can be no other way. That's one of Einstein's quotes that I reference often because I think it's just so incredible and it makes so much sense. And we see it in so many different ways in life. We just don't realize that we are a part of that too. So I think a couple of things go along with trust. Number one, having good intention. I think is as long as your intentions are good, and I think providing value is really, really important. If you are providing value to the world, I don't think there's any way you can mess that up. You might go down a different path than what you originally intended to go down, but I mean, if you got good intentions and value and you just want to help make the world a better place, however way you can possibly serve, I just think it's hard not to trust at that point.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope that answered the question. I feel like I was all over the place with that one, but they were thought provoking questions. I think I've never thought about in that way. So thank
That's
you.
awesome. And you know what's cool as you were talking, I know that you're a Pisces, and I was thinking like she is the most like on track Pisces I've ever met.
Hey, there we go.
It must be the Capricorn rising.
You know what? I must be. I'm gonna tell my astrology friends that you said that because I get shit for being a Pisces sometimes. I'm gonna be
My
like, well, I
goodness.
was told I'm the most on track Pisces there is.
The
So
fact that you remembered the second question after your tangent, I was like, I've never seen a Pisces do that before.
I gotta admit that's rare. So maybe it's not the most on point Pisces. It's just a good luck moment.
You might have been picking up on my grounding energy.
That's probably what it was. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
the soul contract, spirit contract thing, there's a lot of information in your astrology chart based on timing, what you're meant to go through, how difficult this lifetime is supposed to be, how many blessings you're supposed to find in this lifetime. So that's where I like to bridge astrology in with all of this esoteric knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to hear you talk about your beliefs and your views. I feel like we are very similar on point. Like we're in the same mindset, we're on a very similar vibration. So I'm really glad that we got this time to connect today. And I appreciate your message for our audience. I feel like you put things so eloquently in a way that's easy to digest and easy to understand. So thank you for your time today. Uh,
Oh, thank you for having me, truly, and thank you for your kind words. I sometimes I don't think that I'm as eloquent as I intend to be, but to hear the feedback does make me a bit happy.
Good, good. Do you have any last messages, any philosophies that you want to share, any last little tidbits before we wrap up?
Oh boy, shoot, yeah, I probably got a bunch of them. Um, that's a good question.
Didn't mean to cut you off guard there.
No, no, you're okay. I have like 20 things running through my mind, and I'm like, do I pick? I
I
guess
love
I always do this. What I feel called to say, I guess. Kind of just going back to the trust thing and whatnot. I think if people can understand that there really is a version of themselves that already exists, that's already doing everything that they desire to do. I'm talking everything. They got it all. And if you can understand that, I think it just brings such a beautiful ray of hope into your life of just understanding that you can create. All you have to do is get yourself aligned. And in the same way, understanding that everybody in your life is just a reflection of yourself and a reflection of what is possible for you, both good and bad. And so, kind of going back to what I was saying about the law of polarity, it's all up to you to decide, what part of the continuum you're going to fall on. And so, I would just encourage everybody to really kind of just get in tune with themselves, get in tune with who you are, get in tune, every once in a while, just take a moment to observe your thoughts, take a moment to just ask yourself, what do I believe? And a lot of it is subconscious. So I do encourage everybody to reach out to a coach and get some coaching. You're never, ever, ever going to regret investing in yourself. You're always going to get something out of it. And just being able to bring that awareness into your mindset and really just work through it every single day. Like I said, it doesn't have to be anything immediate. You don't have to be perfect at it. You're not going to be perfect at it. Perfectionism is an illusion anyway. So just be who you are and enjoy every single experience you go through. Truly enjoy it. I think that's the message I want to leave it on, because I think when you bring joy and gratitude into your experiences, life just instantly becomes brighter at that point anyway. So
Very wise words, Tayler.
thank you. I tried.
I'll have you send some links so I can throw them in the show notes, but can you tell our listeners where they can find you and connect?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on both TikTok and Instagram, just at the Cosmic Vegan. I'm on there, and also I do an email subscription too. It's free, but if you go to the links in my bio, you can sign up for that. I also have a overcoming fear workbook, a journaling workbook that's really cool. So if you are somebody that feels like the fear of like failure or judgment or rejection, or all three are showing up heavily in your life, and you really want to kind of alchemize that into more confidence and security, definitely take a look at the workbook and look at the prompts and really give them some intentional thought. It's going to help you release some of that as well. But if you get on my email list, I send them out every Monday, just, inspirational, motivational emails, very heavily spiritually based. A lot of times I talk about my own personal experiences in there too. And just a way to kind of start your week off on a positive note, because I think it's very important to do so.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Tayler. Hopefully we'll have you on again. This has been wonderful.
Absolutely. This has been my pleasure entirely. So thank you for having me.
Of course.